disgusting. That's the word. It's how former U.S. President Donald Trump described Russia's latest missile strikes on Kyiv. Awful strikes that tragically killed at least 16 innocent people. And that included a 6-year-old boy and his mother. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking closely at an article called The Human Cost of Hesitation, Ukraine's Unfolding Tragedy. It really tries to lay bare the stark realities behind how the world has responded, or maybe hasn't responded enough to the conflict. So we'll be digging into the U.S. involvement over time, whether sanctions have actually worked, and maybe most importantly, the absolutely devastating human toll when action is delayed. And the question kind of hanging over all of this, the one we'll keep coming back to is, does it even matter anymore? Okay, so Trump's condemnation, that word disgusting, it came late, didn't it?
Very late.
But definitely landed loud, especially after months where he seemed to be avoiding direct criticism of Putin.
Right, walking that tightrope, as you said.
So this shift, it's noticeable. The article makes you ask, okay, why now? What prompted this specific condemnation?
Well, what's really interesting in the article is how it links that late condemnation to the very real consequences of delay happening right on the ground. While the world was sort of debating stronger, earlier action, a town in eastern Ukraine, after an 18-month siege, it fell.
18 months.
Yeah, and now it's flying a Russian flag. The piece describes it starkly, shattered, empty, ruined. It's presented not just as sad, but as a direct result. The actual cost of delay, the price of hesitation.
That idea of a town just shattered. Mm-hmm. Because of delay, it really brings us to the question of, well, what leverage was being used or wasn't used? Mm-hmm. And the article gets into the effectiveness, or maybe lack of effectiveness, of sanctions here, particularly with Trump's promise of new ones, which sounded remarkably reluctant.
Yeah, the quote is something else.
Right. He says almost casually, I don't know that sanctions bother him. He goes on, they know about sanctions. I know better than anybody. I don't know if that has any effect, but we're going to do it. It sounds like a threat that even the person making it doesn't fully believe will work.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, the article points out, there was already a bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers pushing for tougher sanctions earlier.
Right, but they met resistance.
Exactly. And now you have someone like retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges saying what's really needed is, quote, serious economic pressure. He's talking specifically about secondary sanctions.
Okay, so what are those exactly? Different from regular sanctions.
Yeah, so instead of just sanctioning Russia directly, secondary sanctions target other countries or companies, third parties that are still doing major business with Russia, like buying their oil.
So hitting their customers, essentially, like China or India.
Precisely. The idea is to force them into a tough spot, make them back off from Russia. But as the article notes, that's diplomatically tricky.
And probably carries economic risks for the U.S. too, I imagine.
Definitely. And enforcing them effectively, that takes real political will, which the article calls shaky.
It's easy to say shaky political will, like the article does, but does it give any sense of why it might be shaky? Are there real complexities here, maybe domestic pressures making it hard, or is it just, a lack of resolve?
The article seems to lean heavily towards suggesting it's more about a lack of decisive resolve. It frames it less around the complexity and more around how futile the U.S. threats seem, especially when you look at it from Russia's point of view. It even describes this chillingly confident reaction on Russian state TV.
Oh, what did they say?
Well, one lawmaker apparently just laughed off Trump's ultimatum, said something like, "We respond to ultimatums with profanities. Speaking to us in that tone is futile and useless."
Wow. And that feeling of futility, it's not just talk, is it? There's a reason they feel that way.
Exactly. The article argues it's rooted in what's seen as a pattern of the U.S. not following through. For instance, it had been over 2 weeks since Trump announced his own kind of personal 50-day ceasefire deadline.
Right, that unilateral push for talks. How did that go?
Well, predictably, Russia largely ignored it. The strikes actually intensified during that period, didn't stop. And maybe more telling, the article points out the U.S. hadn't even shared any new sanctions updates with the EU since January.
Since January, so no coordination.
Apparently not. No coordination, no follow-through. That's the implication. And that, the piece suggests, is why Russia feels confident. It's why the world, to use the article's words again, just watches, feeling helpless and disillusioned.
And this helplessness, this disillusionment, it's not just an abstract concept for diplomats, is it?
No, not at all.
It has its most horrific impact, not in strategy rooms or economic charts, but in the raw, devastating human cost, which is really the core of this article. We started with those 16 deaths in Kyiv, that 6-year-old boy. This is where the human cost of hesitation really hits home.
It does, and it forces you to ask, what do these numbers actually mean? The article doesn't just leave it at statistics. It tells the specific, heartbreaking story of a 10-year-old boy named Timur.
From Kramatorsk.
Yes, from Kramatorsk. He was just visiting his grandmother. The article paints this picture of him being excited, happy, curious a kid. You know, born into war, technically, but still just a child-loving life. He went to sleep on the top floor of her apartment building. Quiet night. And then at 4:40 in the morning, a massive Russian bomb, 250 kilograms, just tore through the building.
Oh, my God.
They found Timur's toys on the roof. His bed was just gone. They pulled his body from the rubble later.
Just hearing those details, the toys on the roof, his bed gone. It makes it so real in a way numbers just can't.
It does.
His mother, Nastya,
Yeah.
the article says she left him with his grandmother for just one night. One night. She's going to pick him up the next day.
Oh, no.
And when her phone rang at 5 a.m., she just froze. Couldn't answer. She said she just knew. And Timur, he wasn't just a name. He had a favorite teacher, apparently. He had pet rats.
Pet rats.
Yeah. And he used to speak up in class if someone was being bullied.
Huh. A good kid.
Yeah. And the article points out this incredibly cruel irony. He was born in 2015. That's the same year his father was killed fighting Russian forces. So war was literally the background music of his entire life.
Yeah.
Until that morning when it became the final note.
And the article adds another chilling detail. Timur was the only person who died in that particular airstrike. Just him. He's buried now, on the edge of Kramatorsk, in a cemetery where, the article says, empty graves wait for more children just like him.
That's horrifying.
It really shifts the focus, doesn't it? This isn't just about politics or strategy anymore. It's about the profound, irreversible cost, the price of hesitation, of inaction, the actual human faces behind every single headline.
So you pull all these threads together from the article. The late condemnation, the shaky sanctions, the Russian confidence, and then Timur's story. The big takeaway seems to be this huge, stark gap, the gap between all the political talk and what's actually happening to people.
Exactly.
While leaders debate sanctions and deadlines, the article forces us to see that children are dying, cities are burning, the war isn't stopping, it's just being evolved. Trump's condemnation might have been loud, but words, threats, sanctions, they don't stop missiles, do they? They don't rebuild homes. They definitely don't bring back sons.
No, they don't. And this deep dive really exposes that chasm, that disconnect between the sort of geopolitical chess game and the brutal reality on the ground. The world is watching, as the article says, helpless, disillusioned. And so far, maybe we've mostly just offered words.
Timur's story. It's just one of thousands, as the article reminds us. But it leaves you with this heavy question. If that kind of human cost laid out so clearly doesn't move the world to more decisive, effective action, then what on earth will?
Yeah.
It's something to really think about long after you put the article down.